This is Head On Shaw TV. Hello, I'm Ian Holmes. An incinerator in Nanaimo. It's a possibility. The process underway through Metro Vancouver officials, having shortlisted some sites around BC, and Nanaimo is one of the locations that could potentially see an incinerator, a waste-to-energy incinerator, but there are some concerns locally, and information about this seems to be lacking somewhat, but that will change in the new year. Wheelabrator, one of the proponents, and also Urbaser, a European-based company, a joint venture, is going to start a public relations campaign in the new year to get information out there a little bit more about what this waste-to-energy garbage incinerator at Duke Point potentially could be. I have a guest in studio. We'll hear from the Wheelabrator and Urbaser officials here momentarily, but first I'll interview my in-studio guest, and that is Ian Gartshore, a concerned citizen, also former provincial Green Party, ran provincially, and also an energy advisor who has some insight and some ideas about this particular issue, burning garbage to get rid of what we can't quite recycle and what we don't want to put to the dump. And so here's the burning garbage option. Ian, thanks so much for joining me in studio. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Ian. Glad to be here.
So on the outset, when you look at the concept of burning our garbage potentially at Duke Point here locally, what jumps out at you? What concerns you? What is your take on that particular possibility here in Nanaimo?
Ian, it's a big question, and I think the question is bigger than just bringing garbage from Lower Mainland to here. The question is, why do we have garbage in the first place? And therefore, once we have garbage, what do we do with it? So what we're doing is we're looking at, okay, so the garbage could be sent here, could be sent elsewhere. What are we going to do with it? Do we want to just put it into a landfill? I think clearly the time has come when we need to say no more landfilling, or at least minimizing it. And so the question is, what do we do with it? And what these proponents are offering is a way of disposing of it that would greatly reduce the amount of landfilling going on. Mm-hmm. One of the concerns that I am hearing is that what's left over, the waste from burning, would still have to be landfilled and would be potentially, most likely, to be highly toxic. And so we'd still need to have some place to dump all of this waste.
Okay, now with your assertion that do we even need this? There's more we could potentially do with our recycling. Right now, in the regional district of Nanaimo, around a 70% diversion rate on keeping garbage away from the landfill. It's quite high, and that's pretty good. A lot of garbage is not going towards the landfill. From your standpoint, in taking out the rest of that 30% and shrinking as we move forward, as people are more recyclable savvy, are you saying that, hey, we don't need a waste center, we don't need to burn our garbage, there's more that we can do domestically to prevent burning our garbage and do more recycling?
Absolutely. Ian, there are places in North America that are aiming for 90% diversion. And 90% is a really good goal, considering the fact that municipalities are burdened with trying to dispose of all of this waste. We did not create the waste. Keep in mind that the waste is started when it's manufactured somewhere else, whether it be Taiwan or the States or somewhere else, and then it's put into packages and then then we buy it and we use it up, and then within a very short period of time, most things that we buy are used up within a month, most things, including food. And so what do we do with what's left over from all of those products? Right now, the current model that we have in the world, the Western world especially, is that we try to dump it, we try to get rid of it. We put it into the sewer system, which we have pretty much just flushed into the ocean until more recent years, particularly in Victoria, it's still happening there. Or we put it into the dump, and then we cap it, and we hope that everything will be fine.
Or potentially burn it and turn it into energy, Ian. Because I know what you're saying in terms of getting to the goal of getting to higher diversion rates, but I mean, at the end of the day, we'll never get to 100% diversion rate. It just isn't feasibly possible. So having a private company to come in and burn it and turn it into energy from the surface, with no taxpayer dollars going into it, seems like a good solution. Okay,
well, I'm going to question a couple of things that you're asserting there, Ian. Okay. The first one is we will never get to 100% diversion. Well, never is a very, very, very long time. The question is, can we do it soon? Because we're running out of landfill space. The Lower Mainland is shipping it off to Cache Creek, I think it is, and our dump is getting pretty full. And so the question is, can we get close or to that 100%? With Wheelabrator's proposal, we will not be at 100%. We'll still need to have landfill, and it's going to have to be specially lined landfill because otherwise it's going to leach into the ground, which is not a good thing for environment, not a very good thing if you've got drinking water that you're taking out of your well nearby, if it ends up having cadmium and lead and arsenic and all these other kinds of things that come from products that we do. That's the first thing I want to question. The second one is, how can we reduce the amount of garbage that needs to be handled, needs to be processed? That, to me, is the bigger question, and it's a question that many countries, surprisingly, haven't really looked at very carefully until now.
Another, you mentioned some environmental concerns. Employment is a big carrot that's being dangled over Nanaimo here with the potential of a waste-to-energy incinerator at Duke Point. And to fill us in a little bit more about the employment opportunities here locally, Mark Swartz, Senior Manager of Business Development for Wheelabrator Technologies, with the employment aspect and what this could mean for the Mid-Island's economy. Mark Swartz.
Typically, in projects of this size, during the construction period, you'll see 250, 350 jobs of direct support to building a facility such as this. You know, plumbers, steam fitters, millwrights, boiler makers, civil construction folks, electronics folks, electricians, etc. Then, after commissioning, I'd say probably 60 people, maybe add another 10 to 15 people on both sides if there was the marine component for transportation. So figure 70, 75 full-time jobs. Pretty skilled jobs and rewarding jobs, as well as support for the facility, you know, besides, we speak of the health risk assessments and the environmental risk assessments. Besides those studies, along with projects like this, comes an economic impact analyses to the community, right? And I can only go on, because we haven't got to that point in the process yet, so I can go on past economic impact analyses that have been done for projects of this size and magnitude. You could figure to the community itself and local goods and services being supplied to an operation like this, somewhere between $12 and $15 million a year of revenue directly related to community involvement with the project.
Mark Swartz there with Wheelabrator. Pretty significant numbers, around 70 full-time, well-paying jobs. He mentioned there at the end, $12 to $15 million infused into the local economy each year. This is an industrial starved community that is Nanaimo. What's your reaction to what Mr. Swartz had to say about the potential employment opportunities as it pertains to an incinerator in Nanaimo there, Ian?
Ian, I love jobs. I think that employment is very, very important to the Mid-Island area, as it is to just about everywhere in the Western world. And I can think of some better ways of creating jobs. Let me give you an example. That up till March 31st of this year, as a certified energy advisor, the amount of business I was creating for local, highly paid people was at least as many as this gentleman, as Mark Swartz says that they would be creating out at the Duke Point. About 70 jobs, I would say at least 70 jobs, were lost when the provincial government cut incentive funding to help homeowners improve the energy efficiency of their homes. These are people who are heat pump specialists or heating specialists, people who do plumbing, people who do insulating work, window people, including manufacturing right here on Vancouver Island. A lot of those jobs disappeared on April the 1st. So if we want to generate income, that costs the government zero, because the extra amount of revenues from the taxes generated actually paid for the incentive program, so it costs the government nothing. This incinerator is going to cost the people in the Lower Mainland, and presumably us, because we'll end up having to send our garbage that way, it's going to cost us a lot as taxpayers.
Now we'll hear from David Garcia de Herreros. He's with Urbaser, the company that is partnering with Wheelabrator to potentially bring this incinerator to Nanaimo. And he makes some comments about waste energy being the way of the future. This is huge in Europe, 450 of these WTE plants in Europe. And Mr. de Herreros, hope I'm saying that correctly, will allude to that right now.
Waste to energy, there are more than 450 waste to energy facilities in Europe today. European legislation has been passed in most of the countries, banning organic waste from going to the landfill and establishing some treatment facilities prior to waste being sent to the landfills. These 450 facilities, they are located in all countries in Europe. The countries that have the highest percentage of waste being actually incinerated are the countries that have the highest recycling rates in Europe. Countries such as Germany, Holland, Denmark, the Scandinavian countries, they have about 60% of their waste recycled, and the 40% that is left is actually incinerated. These facilities are also located mainly in city centers. Cities such as Copenhagen in Denmark, they have 3 waste-to-energy facilities that are located downtown. Cities like Paris, they have a downtown facility that is located a few hundred meters away from the Eiffel Tower. Cities like London, cities like Vienna, cities like Monaco, most of the European cities have one waste-to-energy facility located really near the downtown center.
Wow, waste to energy, obviously a big part of the culture of what's going on with extra garbage and how to handle it in Europe. And Ian, your response to David Garcia de Herreros with Urbaser and his comments about waste to energy in Europe.
You know, I consider waste incineration to be something similar like to hybrid when it comes time to a Prius or one of these cars. They are a transition from vehicle emissions that comes from gasoline-powered cars to getting to all electric or other alternative ways of powering a vehicle. It's a transition, and waste to energy is one of those transitions. It's what they've been using in Europe, where they have smaller footprints, where they don't want to have as much garbage. They are transitioning from dump, which is not as good, particularly when it comes down to greenhouse emissions, to getting to a place where it's closer to zero emissions. Actually, in those countries where they do a lot of burning, they have less recycling than we do here in Nanaimo. And I think that's very interesting because we have done a really good job of getting there. Slowly but surely we're getting there, and they have been delayed. And that's very surprising because these are people in European countries that are usually way ahead of us. So I would say, if Vancouver really wants to go to this, they need to get serious into recycling first and then going in this direction.
Well, we'll see where this goes, Ian. There's going to be a lot more community engagement coming up in the new year. I've been assured that from these officials with Wheelabrator, also their partner Urbaser, this European-based incineration firm. So there'll be a lot more conversations coming up in the new year. And this is certainly an issue that will not be going away with the Nanaimo shortlisted as a possible incineration site. Ian, I really appreciate you coming on the program. Thanks a lot for your insight. And we'll have much more discussion on this TV show, the radio station I work for, Wave and Wolf Radio in Nanaimo, about this in the future. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure, Ian.
Ian Gartshore, concerned citizen, also a certified energy advisor, with his take on the potential for a waste-to-energy incinerator coming to the Duke Point portion of Nanaimo. Huge environmental, social, and economic ramifications on the table here, and we really appreciate Ian and also our viewers at home for tuning in and getting a little bit more information about this particular application. That's it for another edition of Head On here on Shaw TV. I'm your host, Ian Holmes. Tune in for another exciting edition next time.